morning. Welcome to Sales TV. It is absolutely brilliant to be with you today, back here at the Grenville Turner Studios in Cranfield University. I am going to be talking with Jeremy Moore, a person I've known for 10, 15 years. I really respect this guy, and we're going to be joined by co-host Adam Gray. And what we're going to be talking about is addiction versus authenticity as leaders. Really, really important topic, and I think it's really important right now for salespeople because we're at this crossroads where we've got young salespeople leaving, we've got people who are retiring, and actually all of them are looking for authentic leadership. But my fear is that lots of sales leaders are addicted to what happened to them when they were 25, what happened to them when they were a first-line manager, a second-line manager, a leader, because that's what they learned from the people above them, and they keep on doing that to the people now below them, and it's just not working. So without further ado, can we bring in Jeremy and Adam? And Jeremy, brilliant to have you on the show. It's taken us a while. What's quite interesting is you're live in Portugal. Actually, we've got a co-host who's in Portugal and another co-host who's in Portugal. So we're kind of getting Sales TV to almost be dual national straightening. But tell us about yourself, Jeremy.
Very quickly, I moved to Portugal 3 years ago. I've been consulting in leadership for the last 25 years, both teams and leadership specifically, largely in a coaching capacity. And I still do it to this day, but not full time. That's me.
Cool. So we've talked about this before, not in this format. So talk to me about authenticity versus addiction from a leadership perspective, because we can, it will fit sales as it will with other leaders. So what's the problem as you see it?
Well, this is a really good one because I did this exercise several times with groups of leaders. I said to them, imagine a room of 40 or 50 leaders at a conference. And I said, I want you to write down the 5 or 6 things that you believe makes a really well-led company. The model company to work for, to be involved in. And they all write down the same sort of stuff. A clear purpose, good work-life balance, good team spirit, camaraderie, etc. I then said, hands up, who in this room has a good work-life balance? No hands go up. Hands up in this room. If I was your department, your company, and I said to the employees, tell me what this clear stated purpose of the organization is. Would they be able to do it? No hands go up. And so, and you can see where I'm going with this. But basically, all of these leaders know what the good behavior is. They know what the right thing to do is, but they can't do it. And they weren't doing it. And so that's where I sort of came with the thesis. They're basically addicted to past behavior. And that's what I call leadership addiction. A pattern of behavior you have currently, which you can't change or struggling to change for a better one, and you're stuck in that paradigm.
And so your argument is that actually the addiction is you're doing it, but you know it's not right.
Exactly.
It's like me having a drink. I do it too much a little bit, and I know it's not right, and I like to be fit, but it's an awareness that you're saying is an issue here, and actually that's a really fascinating point to me, is that if people do reflect.
But you having a couple of pints more than you should is maybe sort of not the greatest behavior in the world, but at what point does it become an addiction? And I would argue it becomes an addiction when it starts to become damaging, and you can see the damage. Now, in Europe, productivity hasn't risen since 2004. In Europe, loss of working hours due to mental health or ill health has risen. And you look at the election campaigns going on at the moment, there is so much damage being done by leaders at the moment that I would say it's become an addiction because it's actually harmful. It's quantifiably harmful.
And from a perspective of sales, what's the damage being done? I mean, we're kind of talking about it here without leading the witness about, to your point, well-being and burnout. 67% of people feeling stressed and burnout in sales. Well-being, therefore, on the down. There's a desire for people to come into the sales function, but people are finding it hard to find people who want to be in sales. And we're still inspecting the hell out of everyone.
Well, I think we're looking down the wrong end of the telescope. With all due respect to Cranfield, there have never been more MBAs or executive programs or executive training courses than ever before. Loads and loads of people are offering sort of sales, leadership, training, and what have you. But they're confusing knowledge with wisdom. They're looking down the wrong end of the telescope, and they're providing more and more trained up, well-qualified people. In the old days, economy, now, phase law is when by producing something, you believe it's great demand for it. And in the third, John Maynard Keynes, my hero, said actually we should be looking not at the supply side of the equation, but the demand side of the equation. And so we should really be asking, what do people experience by a sales force or a salesman? What do people experience by leaders? So we're confusing knowledge and wisdom. We know plenty. What we're not listening to is how people feel about the products we're selling. And that, to me, is the competitive landscape for every corporation, every leader going forward. We have the agricultural economy, we have the industrial economy. I think we're now in the experience economy. And battlefield is not what you think about me, it's how you feel about me. And that's, I think, the big lesson for sales and for leaders generally is rather than be on the I'm providing you know, I'd be asking, what is it you're receiving? What do you think you're hearing from me?
Yeah, and I think that's fascinating. And if we can bring Adam in, because I know he'll have some views about experience, that actually one of our colleagues, Ram, who is doing some wellbeing research in the ISP, the reality that he's looking at is actually if you, to your point, Jeremy, think about the experience of your employees and give them a great experience. He's actually proved out with some organizations that the customer experience goes up. There is a causation and a correlation in it. And I think you're right. I don't think we look at, let's be really punchy and controversial and then ask Adam for his views, but we like to think we're creating a really, really nice culture and we care about employees and we're going to treat employees like customers. It's like, no, we're not. We're just going to beat the bejesus out of them for the best number that they can give us until they clear off somewhere else. Adam, have that hand grenade.
Yeah. So this is clearly a very complicated issue. I think that the challenge that we have is that we live in a society these days where fact and data doesn't have the value that it once did. We like to think in business that we're data led and we're data scientists and we're making decisions based on best practice. I think in the more interpersonal areas of business, the cognitive dissonance, like the facts all show this, but actually I think the facts are wrong. I think this is the truth. I think we're seeing that played out again and again, aren't we? Sales leaders see that the things they're doing are not working. And the answer is to do more of the things that aren't working, as if that's magically going to change them into things that do work. And I think you're right. A lot of the problem with this has been that sales leaders have come up through the ranks and they grew up in a different world of sales when outbound interruption worked. And now it doesn't work. The buyer is so much more sophisticated. The buyer has all of the answers at their fingertips. And what they're looking for is somebody to guide them through the process. And yet sales leaders don't do that. And I think that part of the challenge that we have is that we need almost to press the reset button, don't we? As you were saying, Jeremy, about these behaviors being addictive when they become damaging. I think we've long since reached that point. The behaviors are things that are driving this disconnect between the seller and the buyer, but also they're driving poor mental health and all of the breakdown characteristics we see in sellers. Andy, I know that you're trying to do a good job as a salesman. I know that you're concerned that you're not making your number. However, I need you to do another 20 calls a day or emails or whatever it may be. And you're on this treadmill, but it's not delivering the results you need because we're fundamentally doing the wrong things. We're trying to eat ourselves thin, aren't we?
Great analogy. So Jeremy, what do we do? What changes?
I think Adam's point of a reset is a very good one. And I think I'm a great believer if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And I think companies should be forced to publish employee experience. You said you've been working with Dr. Ram Raghavan, who I know very well, who's an expert in this area. All you're really asking is to measure respect, trust, and loyalty. Those three big things. I mean, and this because you need to know what people how they genuinely feel, and with a number. And is that number uniform? Is it improving? What's happening with it? But just take the biggest one of all. You can see, I see it all over my TikTok feed, and the news, and Sky, and everywhere that people. I mean, look what's happening on the French election. There is just a massive tsunami of a reaction at the erosion of trust that all our leaders across the board have sort of eaten into, basically.
And so, how, if you're a sales leader, do you press that reset button and do you build trust with your salespeople?
Well, Simon Sinek's done a lot of work on this area as well. Let me give you some more examples. How can it be right with a cost of living crisis that the head of Tesco earns 10 million? How can it be right the head of Sainsbury's got a 2.5 million bonus? How can it be right that the anchor, I forget her name, who divulged Nigel Farage's banking details and the breach all the banking codes got paid off with a 2 million payoff? I mean, it's just, you've really got to start right at the beginning and say, right, I'm not going to do anything until I measure exactly how people experience it. That's the only matrix I'm concerned about. And I think you'll find when you know the data, what has eroded trust, what behaviours eroded trust, what's eroded loyalty, etc. Only then you work on the data and behave differently. I suppose it's a bit like your addiction thing. It's a massive intervention, self-imposed, by listening to people.
Adam, what are your thoughts?
Well, that would be a novelty, wouldn't it? Well, actually, no. It wouldn't be a novelty to listen to people. It would be a novel to listen to what people are actually saying. Interestingly, I was having a conversation on another show that we do on a Friday, and one of the people was talking about survey fatigue. You know, organizations going out to their employees typically and asking them all sorts of employee experience questions, which is great. The problem is that often those are not listened to, the answers, or not actioned, the answers. And I think we've got a similar situation here. You know, it's all very well asking your salespeople how they feel about things, you know, giving them rapport building and team building exercises and things to raise morale within the organization. But ultimately, if we've finished the rapport building and the team building time that we've had, and then I say to you, and now, Jeremy, you need to go and make another 100 phone calls that are going to lead nowhere. You know, it demonstrates absolutely that you're asking me to speak, but not listening to what I'm saying. And I think that's even more damaging than not asking people to speak in the first place.
I could not agree with you more. I'm a firm believer. Never ask the question. And if you ask the question, if I ask you how you feel, I have a moral responsibility to do something about it.
You'd think, wouldn't you?
Yeah. To raise self-awareness, to say, well, actually, I've asked you, you told me your morale's quite low, your work-life balance is terrible, and you're not getting subsequent training. But then ignore that and leave you in that emotional disruption, if you like, is abuse. And that's where another example of leadership being damaged. I mean, it really sounds too trite to say, well, listen to people, but sometimes you've got to. I keep using this expression, look down the other end of the telescope. In Portugal, there was a drug and crime problem, and so they legalized drugs, and the crime rate fell, and the drug problem fell. You sometimes can be so radical, so like, I may not quite like what you're going to tell me. I'll tell you what. I'm going to do something about it. And my promise to you is if you tell me how you feel, I promise I will do something about it. You may not necessarily like what I do, but I promise you will feel listened to. That's the only deal I'm going to have with you. And then if you say, because you're absolutely right, these surveys are ridiculous because they're still doing the same thing. They're not really listening. They're really telling you things like, well, what do you think about the car park facilities? What do you think about the canteen facilities? What do you think about this? They're leading the witness rather than just stepping back and saying, I'm going to ask you three things. Do you trust me in the organisation? Do you respect the organisation? And do you feel there's empathy in the organisation? That's all I'm going to ask.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say about the crime and drug problem in Portugal, because in the Netherlands, they have they had an issue with crime, and what they did was they gave criminals keys to their own cells, and let them come and go. And now they're in a situation where they're closing prisons because they haven't got enough prisoners to fill them up, because it's worked as a rehabilitation thing rather than a punishment, which it is in the UK, where people typically reoffend. And the problem that we have is that if I've maliciously smashed up your car, you want me to be punished rather than helped and rehabilitated, even though you say you want rehabilitation. And I think that one of the things that's really interesting is that people of my generation, we look at the young people coming into the workplace who want purpose and they want meaning for their work and all of this stuff, and we decry it. We go, ha, 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 you have to earn the right. And yet they change that will make people like me happy in the workplace, because they're saying, well, actually, I do want life days. I do want to do day days. I do want to have a say. I do want 360-degree appraisal. I do want to have inputs into the charities that contribute to all of this stuff that gives them purpose and feels that they want something big, just. And people like me say, no, you need to clock in at 9 and go home at 6, because that's the way that it was for me when I was young. Actually, I think that probably what we're going to see is another 5 or 10 years of things continuing exactly as they are. Then all of a sudden, it'll pivot instantly, where the overwhelming number of people in the workplace are younger than us and have this expectation that work, which, let's be honest, is spend most of your waking time doing. Work is going to be more than just a way of paying you, where it is going to be your purpose in life.
Just for the viewpoint, you looked like the evil villain out of Austin Powers when you went like that. Just as a bit of personal food, $1 billion,
Yes.
Go on, Jeremy.
This is probably because this sounds like an old man's whinging group, but I think we're probably all of the same generation, where on a Wednesday afternoon at school, we used to have games. Will you be,
It's Thursday afternoon, but yes.
And I've often thought, why doesn't business go back to what we did when we were younger? And every Thursday afternoon for 2 hours, we should have games. And I don't mean literally go and kick a football around, but lighten up. Let take some lessons. I mean, and when you talk about purpose, the church once had it right. Have a big, strong message, bang it home every day, and have a party every 3 months.
Yeah, but
by the way, that's not a Cranfield official policy. By the way,
I mean, the answers are out there if we care to look, but we don't, and that's what's an addiction, because the answers are all there.
And I think what's really, I generally love this conversation because I'm passionate about it. And we don't look at the answers. We don't look at history. So we took, Adam's just looked at prisons. And believe it or not, I've got quite a fixation with prisons. And you're going to go, what the hell is he going? Where's he going here? And it's like, but actually, when I left A-levels in Cheshire, you would get given a Cascade form, which was a digital kind of tool to find out what your perfect job was. And actually, my perfect job theoretically was prison governor. So I've always gone, how did they connect me as an 18-year-old to prison governorship? But if you ever watch the documentary about the biggest prison riot in the United Kingdom, they actually talk about addiction, because they interview a prison officer and he went, right, when I came into service, I was effectively taught by somebody who'd come into service after the Second World War. And when he came into service, he was taught by somebody who'd been in the First World War. And when he came into service, he was taught by someone who just joined after the Boer War. So we're running Strangeways on a disciplinarian viewpoint of lock them up for 23 hours a day, because that's what we did in the Boer War. And it's a fascinating word. So I will do unto people what was done unto me. And where I think when you flip it to sales, the huge challenge is coming back to some of the things that you said right at the start. We've not had any productivity gains since 2004, yet every shareholder, whether it be private, whether it be private equity, whether it be public, is looking for a percentage growth every year, but we're not getting it. It's not easily achievable. So if we're constantly looking for that, but we're not getting any productivity gains, at some point, Adam, to your point, it won't pivot, it'll just go pop. Everyone will just go, whoa, this just doesn't work. And it's like, well, no, it doesn't work, because fundamentally you're just running faster and faster and faster, trying to do exactly what you did yesterday. And that's not only the definition of addiction, it's the definition of insanity. Because doing the same things and expecting a different outcome isn't going to work.
Isn't part of the problem, though, the fact that people, I don't mean salespeople necessarily, but people as a whole are lazy. We're hardwired to be lazy. You know, when we were out on the plains, you know, as hunter-gatherers, you wouldn't chase 4 animals if you needed one. You'd chase one, and then you'd eat the one, and then you'd chase another one. And we're lazy. So we've got all of this new tech, and rather than using the tech to enable us to offer a better service to our prospects, a more targeted service to our prospects, what in fact we use the tech for is to try to sell more stuff to more people. You know, so we're looking for the shortest route between 2 points rather than the correct route between 2 points. And I think that part of the challenge with this is that sales have become their own worst enemy. You know, the reason that you don't take cold calls from people anymore is because you've had so many bad experiences being cold called by people who haven't done research and don't understand who you are and what your needs are. If always the experience of cold calling throughout your life had been you answer the phone to a number you don't recognize, the person is really nice, really helpful, not pushy, help solve your problem, you'd look forward to being called by somebody you didn't know. But actually the truth is the converse of that, isn't it?
Adam, that plays exactly the point I'm making. It's the experience that you should say that, say you and I are running a company or cold call team, say, I want the experience of somebody answering the phone to you to be exceptional. I don't care how many calls you make, but I want every single one to be, I want them to call me back and say, I've got to tell you, your guys around me were absolutely fantastic, so helpful. And so that I could not agree with you more on that one. And on your former point about people being lazy, I have a published paper on what I call the lazy brain. And it came about many years ago, and I saw something on Facebook advertising some book about, you know, the amazing you, the fantastic you, the power within, or something like that. And I thought, hang on, it's missing one piece of data. We're not all amazing. We're not all gold medalists. We're average. That's the definition of the average. You know, if we'd all summited Everest, average. And so you're appealing to this sort of hope that somehow you'll be a gold medalist by picking up the book. That hope is not a strategy. And you're right. If you're cold, what do? You put on a jumper because you're not comfortable. If you're hungry, what do? You eat because you're uncomfortable. It's called a comfort zone for a reason. So when people say get out of your comfort zone, I say, why? Why would I possibly want to do that? It's called a comfort zone for a very good reason. And anyway, it's just a view I have.
No, and one of the things that we've only got a minute and a half, and this has been great. So it'd be lovely to get you back, Jeremy, to do a bit more of an in-depth one on this about how. We have a week off next week, but on the 23rd, we're going to be joined by a great guy, Chris Capon, who is just absolutely fantastic. And he is my champion of authentic leadership. There's others out there like Ben Dorks and a lot of other people, Carl Dather, who I'm really into, but actually Chris is going to uncover what he's done to give his employees, his salespeople, a wonderful experience. And it hasn't meant that he's dropped standards. What's interesting, guys, is it's almost like this Amy C. Edmondson and the Fearless organization. It's making people psychologically safe, giving them a great experience, but saying there's a standard of performance here. There's a standard of things that we do. And actually what you end up with is great leadership, great learning, and great performance. So it can be done, but it requires quite a lot of thought and reflection. You know, there's no, as you say, Jeremy, there's no book to pick up and go, that's what I do. If I do these 10 things, I am now going to be an authentic leader, and away we go. It actually has to be within, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, great topic. I hope it's just lifted the lid on this, because we are going to actually spend some more time on this topic, because it's really, really important. I want to say thank you, Jeremy, for coming along. It's been great to be connected with you again. Great to just poke this topic. Adam, thanks for joining as well. And you know, listen to this, because we're going to keep tackling it. We think we need to do more for leaders to see through this fog and actually become really, really sustainable in what they're doing. So thank you for everybody in the back here at the studios. Thank you for all of you out there. Have a great week, and enjoy the Euros. Keep enjoying the Euros. England, another week of anxiety. Portugal, still have them in the sweepstakes.
It's not happening, mate. It's not coming home.
Well, it doesn't matter. I've still got Portugal in the sweepstakes. So everybody, Helga, Jeremy, Alex, come on, we can do it. Yeah. Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.